The generator sputtered and died for the third time that hour, plunging Adebayo's small workshop into darkness. He wiped the sweat from his brow with an oil-stained rag and reached for his flashlight, the beam cutting through the thick evening air of the Yoruba village near Ibadan. Outside, he could hear the familiar chorus of complaints as the entire village lost power again. "Baba Kahind!" A voice called from the darkness. "My generator done die again, oh. You must come." Adebayo sighed. It was past 8 in the evening, and he'd been working since 5 that morning. His back ached, his fingers were cramped, and all he wanted was to go home to his daughters. But in this village, he was the only generator mechanic for miles around, and when the power died, which was almost every night, people depended on him. "I'm coming," he called back, gathering his tools by flashlight. As he stepped out of his small roadside workshop, he nearly collided with 2 girls running toward him through the darkness, their school uniforms dusty from the red laterite roads. "Baba," the first girl, Kahind, threw herself into his arms despite his oil-stained clothes. Her twin sister Taiwo was right behind her, more reserved but equally happy to see their father. My daughters. How was school today?" Adebayo hugged them both, his heart swelling with the fierce love that had sustained him through 5 years of single fatherhood. "Baba, the teacher said I have the highest mathematics score in the entire class," Kahind announced proudly. "And I won the essay competition," Taiwo added quietly. "They're going to publish it in the school magazine." Adebayo felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them away. "Your mother would be so proud," he said automatically, then immediately regretted it. The girls' faces fell. Kahind's jaw tightened, and Taiwo looked at the ground. They never talked about their mother, not if they could help it. "Auntie Kemi is waiting for us at home," Taiwo said, changing the subject. "She made ifo riro for dinner." Good. Go ahead, I'll be home soon. I just need to fix Mr. Ademola's generator." Again, Kahind rolled her eyes. "Baba, that generator is older than we are. He should just buy a new one." "Not everyone has money for a new generator. Omo me. We fix what we have and thank God for it. Now go, before the mosquitoes eat you alive." As his daughters disappeared into the darkness, their flashlight bobbing down the footpath toward home, Adebayo hefted his tool bag and headed toward Mr. Ademola's compound. The village was quiet except for the sounds of crickets and the distant hum of the few generators that were still working. Candlelight flickered in windows, and he could smell kerosene lamps burning. This was his life now, had been for 5 years, since that terrible day in the village square when Folake had publicly denounced him. He could still hear her voice, sharp and cruel, carrying across the market. "I will not die in poverty because of a useless man. You hear me, Adebayo? Useless. I am leaving you and your cursed life behind." The entire village had watched as she climbed into a black SUV, the politician's car, without even looking back at their 3-year-old daughters. The twins had cried for their mother for weeks. The village had whispered for months. And Adebayo had worked and worked and worked, trying to outrun the shame. 20 years later, the memory of that day still burned. But now, on this sweltering evening in 2024, everything was about to change. At the other end of the village, in the home of Chief Adelik, the village head, a very different conversation was taking place. Chief Adelik sat in his plastic chair on the veranda, a battery-powered lantern at his feet, listening to his wife read from her phone. "It says here that twin sisters from our local government area have won an international award for rural electrification." His wife, Mama Tund, squinted at the small screen. "Kahind and Taiwo Adebayo. They've developed some kind of new system that brings reliable power to villages across Africa." Chief Adelik sat up straighter. "Adebayo? You mean our Adebayo? The generator mechanic. It must be. How many Adebayos have twin daughters with those names? And look, there's a picture." She turned the phone to show her husband. 2 beautiful women in their late 20s stood beside what looked like a large solar installation, both wearing hard hats and brilliant smiles. Even in the small photo, their resemblance to their father was unmistakable. "Chinik," Chief Adelik breathed. "Those small girls that were running around this village, the ones their mother abandoned, they have become big people. More than big people, Mama Tun continued reading. It says they're coming home. Coming here, to our village, to implement a pilot project. They want to electrify the entire local government area using their new technology. Chief Adelik leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He remembered those little girls, remembered the shame of their abandonment, remembered how the village women had gossiped and the men had pitted Adebayo. He remembered suggesting, gently, that perhaps Adebayo should send the girls to live with relatives in the city, that a man alone could not properly raise daughters. Adebayo had looked him in the eye and said, "Chief, with respect, these are my children. God gave them to me to protect. I will not abandon them because their mother did." And now those same little girls were international award winners, coming home to save the village that had once pitted them. "We must prepare a proper welcome," Chief Adelik announced. "Call the other chiefs. We need to organize something special." 3 days later, the village square was packed with people. A large banner hung between 2 mango trees. "Welcome home Kahind and Taiwo Adebayo, daughters of the soil." Adebayo stood at the edge of the crowd, uncomfortable in his best shirt, the one he usually reserved for church. His sister Kemi stood beside him, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Can you believe it, brother? Our girls coming home like this?" "I can believe it," Adebayo said quietly. "I always knew they were special. From the day they were born, I knew." The sound of vehicles approaching made everyone turn. 3 black SUVs drove slowly into the village, navigating the potholed road carefully. When they stopped, the crowd surged forward. Everyone wanted to see. Kahind emerged first, tall and confident, in a traditional iro and buba made from expensive Ankara fabric. Taiwo followed, equally elegant but more reserved, wearing a modern pantsuit. They were followed by several young people carrying equipment and laptops. "Baba." Kahind spotted her father in the crowd and ran to him, all her professional polish disappearing as she became a little girl again, hugging her father fiercely. Taiwo was right behind her, and for a moment, the 3 of them stood there in the center of the village square, holding each other while the crowd applauded and ululated. Chief Adelik stepped forward. "Welcome home, our daughters. The village of your birth greets you. We have prepared a small ceremony to honor you." The next hour was a blur of speeches, prayers, and presentations. The twins stood patiently through it all, gracious and humble, thanking the village for their support over the years. When it was finally their turn to speak, Kahind took the microphone. "Thank you, Chief, and thank you to everyone here. My sister and I left this village as young girls with nothing but our father's blessing and the education he sacrificed everything to give us. We return now as women who want to give back to the community that raised us." She gestured to her team, and they began setting up a projector and portable screen, powered by a small generator. The irony was not lost on anyone. "This is our proposal." Taiwo took over, her economist mind organizing presentation smoothly. "We want to electrify not just this village, but the entire local government area. Using solar microgrids, battery storage, and smart distribution systems, we can provide 24-hour electricity at a fraction of the cost of the national grid." The crowd murmured with interest. 24-hour electricity? In this village? It seemed like a dream. "We'll also establish a technical training institute," Kahind continued, "to train young people in installation, maintenance, and renewable energy technology. We want to create jobs, not just provide power. And," Taiwo added, "we'll be working with local businesses to help them grow with reliable electricity, cold storage for farmers, power for shops, internet connectivity for schools." The presentation went on, showing diagrams, budgets, and timelines. The villagers listened with growing excitement. This was really happening. Their village would finally have steady electricity. As the formal ceremony concluded and people began to disperse, chatting excitedly about the proposed changes, Adebayo pulled his daughters aside. "I am so proud of you both," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But why here? Why our village? You could implement this project anywhere." Kahind and Taiwo exchanged a look, the silent communication of twins. "Because this is where you work by candlelight every night to pay our school fees," Kahind said softly. "Because this is where we watched you fix generators in the dark, so other people could have light, while we had none." Because every innovation we've created, every patent we've filed, every success we've achieved, started with a question, Taiwo added. Why should anyone have to live like this? Why should our father have to work so hard just to give us basic education? Why should an entire village be held back by something as simple as lack of electricity? Adebayo embraced them both, unable to speak. That evening, as the twins and their team set up temporary accommodations in a building they'd rented in the village, a battered taxi pulled up to the village square. An elderly woman stepped out, moving slowly, paying the driver with shaking hands. It was Folake. She looked nothing like the vibrant, proud woman who had left 20 years ago. Her face was gaunt, her clothes worn, and she moved with the careful deliberation of someone in constant pain. But her eyes, scanning the village square, still held that calculating look. She'd heard about her daughter's success. News traveled, even to the small room in Ibadan where she'd been living since the politician, Chief Adekunle, had died 3 years ago. His family had taken everything, leaving her with nothing. She'd been working as a help in a local restaurant, barely surviving, when she'd seen the news report about the award-winning Adebayo twins. Her daughters, her blood, surely they would help her. Surely they owed her something. She had given birth to them. After all, that had to count for something. She asked a young boy where the Adebayo family lived, and he pointed down a footpath. But you should wait until morning, Ma. It's late. I'll be fine, Folake said, already moving in that direction. The house, when she found it, was larger than she remembered, still modest by city standards, but clearly improved over the years. There was a small generator humming outside, lights shining from inside. She could see figures moving behind curtains. She knocked on the door. Auntie Kemi opened it, and her face went from welcoming to shock to cold in the space of a heartbeat. You have a lot of nerve coming here, Kemi said, her voice hard. I need to see my daughters, Folake said, trying to sound firm, but hearing the weakness in her own voice. Your daughters? Your daughters. Kemi's voice rose. You mean the babies you abandoned in the village square? The children you called a curse? Those daughters. The commotion brought Adebayo to the door. When he saw Folake, he stopped dead, his face unreadable. Adebayo, Folake said, and hated how small her voice sounded. Please, I need to see them. They're not here, he said quietly. They're staying at the project building tonight. Then I'll come back tomorrow. Folake, Adebayo's voice was tired. Why are you here? After 20 years, why now? They're my daughters, too. I have a right. You gave up your rights when you left, Kemi interrupted. You don't get to come back now that they're successful and claim them. Folake felt anger flare, the old defensiveness. I did what I had to do. I couldn't live in poverty forever. I had to think of my future. Your future? Adebayo's voice finally showed emotion. What about their future? What about those 2 little girls who cried for their mother every night for a year? What about them? I thought they would be better off without me. I thought Chief Adekunle would give me a better life, and then I could send for them. Liar, Kemi said flatly. You told the whole village they were cursed. You said Adebayo was useless. You didn't leave for them, you left for yourself. Folake had no answer to that. It was true, and they all knew it. Where are you staying? Adebayo asked finally. I don't know. I just arrived. Adebayo sighed, and despite everything, despite 20 years of pain and struggle in single parenthood, he couldn't turn her away. Some part of him. The part that still remembered the young woman he'd married. The part that was still bound by the vows he'd made before God and their ancestors, couldn't let her sleep on the street. There's a guest house near the market. Here. He pulled out some Naira notes and handed them to her. This should cover a few nights. After that, we'll see. Folake took the money, shame and gratitude warring on her face. Thank you. As she turned to leave, Adebayo called after her. Folake, they're going to find out you're here. The village talks. When they ask to see you, it will be their choice, not mine. Do you understand? She nodded and disappeared into the darkness. Inside the house, Kemi turned to her brother. Why did you give her money? After everything. Because she's still their mother, Adebayo said heavily. And because I made a vow 20 years ago that I would not break, even if she broke hers. Whatever happens now is between her and our daughters. The next morning, news of Folake's return spread to the village like wildfire. By the time Kahin and Taiwo arrived at their father's house for breakfast, half the village seemed to be lurking nearby, waiting to see what would happen. Baba, Kahin said as soon as they entered. We heard. Is it true? She's here. Adebayo looked at his daughters, these strong, successful women who still had the vulnerability of the little girls he'd raised. Yes, she came last night. What does she want? Taiwo asked, her voice controlled but her hands trembling slightly. I think you know what she wants. The twins looked at each other, that silent communication passing between them again. We need to see her, Kahin said finally. Are you sure? Anikemi protested. After what she did. We need to, Taiwo confirmed. We need to look her in the eye and hear what she has to say. We owe ourselves that closure. An hour later, Folake sat in the small guest-house room, her hands twisting nervously in her lap, when she heard the knock. Her heart hammered as she opened the door. There they were, her daughters. No longer the chubby-cheeked toddlers she'd left behind, but grown women, beautiful and confident and successful. Everything she'd once dreamed of being. Kahin, Taiwo, she breathed. You should call us by our titles, Kahin said coolly. Dr. Kahin Adebayo and Dr. Taiwo Adebayo. We both have our PhDs now. Earned them. Without you. The words hit like physical blows, but Folake nodded. Of course. I'm so proud of you both. Are you? Taiwo's voice was quiet but sharp. Is that why you're here? To tell us you're proud? I'm here because I'm your mother. Because I want to be part of your lives again. Kahin laughed, but there was no humor in it. Our mother? You stopped being our mother when you told the village we were cursed. When you climbed into that SUV without looking back. When you chose money over your own children. I was young and foolish. I made a terrible mistake. Folake felt tears streaming down her face now. I thought I was choosing a better life. I thought Chief Adekun would give me everything I wanted. And did he? Taiwo asked. Folake shook her head. He gave me nothing but lies and eventually nothing at all. When he died, his family took everything. They threw me out like trash. So now you're here, Kahin said. Now that you have nothing and we have everything. How convenient. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Taiwo interrupted. Explain it to us. Make us understand how a mother abandons 3-year-old twins and then shows up 20 years later expecting forgiveness. Folake collapsed onto bed, her head in her hands. I can't explain it in a way that will make it okay. There is no explanation that makes it okay. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed our family for fantasy. You didn't just destroy our family, Kahin said, her voice shaking with emotion. Do you know what it was like growing up without a mother in this village? Do you know what the other children called us? Motherless bastards, the unwanted ones. They threw stones at us, Mama. Stones. I'm so sorry. And Baba, Taiwo continued, do you know what you did to him? He worked 3 jobs. 3. He was a mechanic by day, a palm wine tapper at dawn, and a night security guard at the school. He slept maybe 4 hours a night for years, so we could eat, so we could go to school, so we could have clothes that weren't completely falling apart. I didn't know, because you didn't ask. Kahin's composure finally broke. You never came back. You never sent a letter, never sent money, never asked if we were alive or dead. You just disappeared. The room fell silent, except for Folake's quiet sobbing. Finally, Taiwo spoke, her voice deadly calm. Why are you really here? And don't lie to us. We're not children anymore. Folake looked up at her daughters, and in their eyes, she saw herself reflected back, not as she wanted to be seen, but as she really was. A woman who had made terrible choices and was now facing the consequences. I'm sick, she said quietly. Cancer. The doctors in Ibadan say I need treatment, expensive treatment, and I have nothing. No money, no insurance, no family willing to help. I heard about your success, and I thought maybe you would help me. There it was. The truth, naked and ugly. Kehain closed her eyes. Taiwo's jaw tightened. So you came here to ask us to pay for your treatment. Kehain said slowly, I'm your mother. No, Taiwo interrupted. You were our mother. You gave that up. But you gave us life, and maybe that counts for something. She turned to her sister. Kehain. Kehain was silent for a long moment. I don't know. I need time to think. We both do, Taiwo agreed. We'll discuss it and let you know our decision. As they turned to leave, Folate called out desperately, I know I don't deserve your help. I know I have no right to ask. But please, I'm begging you. I don't want to die like this, alone and in pain. Kehain paused at the door, but didn't turn around. You chose to be alone 20 years ago. You don't get to decide now that loneliness is inconvenient. After they left, Taiwo and Kehain walked in silence through the village until they reached the old primary school where they'd studied as children. They sat on the same concrete bench where they used to eat lunch, looking out at the dusty schoolyard. What do we do? Taiwo asked finally. I don't know, Kehain admitted. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell. Part of me wants to pay for her treatment and never see her again. Part of me wants... Wants what? Wants her to love us. Still, after all these years, I want her to look at us and feel regret, yes, but also pride. I want her to love us the way Baba loves us. Taiwo took her sister's hand. She can't give us what she doesn't have. Baba taught us that. You can't draw water from an empty well. Then what do? We ask ourselves what kind of women we want to be. Women who let anger rule us, or women who rise above it. That evening, Chief Adeli called an emergency meeting of the village elders. Word had spread about Folake's return and her request, and the village was divided. Some thought the twins should help their mother regardless of the past. Others thought Folake deserved nothing. The meeting was held in the village square, and to everyone's surprise, Kehain and Taiwo asked to attend. Chief Adelik opened the meeting. We are here to discuss a difficult matter. Folake Adebayo has returned after 20 years and has asked her daughters for help. The village has opinions, but ultimately, this is a family matter. Still, because the whole village witnessed her abandonment, we feel we have a right to speak. Elder Badibo, the oldest man in the village, spoke first. In our culture, we honor our mothers and fathers. It is our way. Even when they wrong us, they are still our parents. But she abandoned her children. Another elder protested. She publicly shamed them and their father. There must be consequences for such actions. The debate went back and forth, voices rising and falling. Finally, Chief Adelik raised his hand for silence. Let us hear from the daughters themselves. Kehain, Taiwo, you asked to be here. What do you wish to say? Kehain stood, her voice steady. Thank you, Chief. My sister and I have spent the last day thinking about nothing but this. We've talked, we've cried, we've prayed, and we've come to a decision. The village leaned in, everyone waiting. Our mother abandoned us when we were 3 years old. She left us to face mockery, poverty, and struggle. She gave up her right to claim us as daughters. That is the truth. Heads nodded in agreement. But Taiwo stood beside her sister. Our father taught us something more important than holding grudges. He taught us that we don't help people because they deserve it. We help people because we have the ability to do so, and because mercy is more powerful than revenge. Our success, Kehain continued, was built on pain. Every time we faced discrimination, every time someone called us unwanted, every time we studied by candlelight because there was no electricity, we made a choice. We could let that pain destroy us, or we could let it fuel us to create something better. We chose to create something better, Taiwo said. And now we have a choice again. We can let our mother's abandonment define us forever, or we can choose mercy. The village was silent, hanging on every word. We will pay for our mother's medical treatment, Kehain announced. Not because she deserves it, but because we are better than the abandonment we suffered. We are better than the hate we could choose to carry. But Taiwo held up a hand as murmurs spread through the crowd. There are conditions. Our mother must publicly apologize to our father and to this village for the shame and pain she caused. She must acknowledge what she did and take responsibility for it. And, Kahind added, she must understand that paying for her treatment does not buy her a place in our lives. We will ensure she doesn't die in pain, but we cannot give her our love. That is something that must be earned, and 20 years of absence cannot be erased by a few months of reconciliation. Folake, who had been sitting at the edge of the crowd, stood up slowly. I accept your conditions, and I want to say something now in front of everyone. She walked to the center of the square, her movement slow and painful. When she reached the middle, she fell to her knees. Adebayo, she looked at her former husband, I wronged you in the worst way a woman can wrong a man. I shamed you publicly. I abandoned our children. I destroyed our family because I was selfish and foolish and blind. I have no excuse. I can only say I am sorry, and I know sorry will never be enough. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to the village. And to all of you who witnessed my cruelty, who watched me abandon my babies, who have carried this story for 20 years, I apologize. I brought shame not just on my family, but on this village. I betrayed every value we were taught about motherhood, about family, about duty. She finally turned to her daughters. Kahind, Taiwo, I gave birth to you, but I was never your mother. Your mother was your father, who did the work of two parents. Your mother was your Auntie Kemi, who stepped in when I stepped out. Your mother was this village, which raised you even when I would not. I have no right to your love or your forgiveness, but I thank you for your mercy. The village square was silent, except for the sound of quiet crying. Even the hardest hearts were moved. Adebayo walked over to where Folake knelt and helped her to her feet. Stand up, he said gently. Enough kneeling. You've humbled yourself enough. I don't deserve your kindness, Folake whispered. No, Adebayo agreed. But I made a vow before God and our ancestors 20 years ago. For better or worse, I said. I kept that vow even when you broke yours. Not for you, but for myself. Because a man's word must mean something. He turned to address the village. Let this be the end of it. Folake has apologized. Our daughters have shown mercy. And now we all move forward. Let the past be buried. Chief Adelik stood. The village agrees. Folake Adebayo, you are welcome to stay in this village while you receive treatment. But you stay as a guest, not as family. The Adebayo family has shown you grace you did not earn. Honor that grace. Over the following months, the village underwent a transformation more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. The Twins project wasn't just about electricity. It was about complete rural development. Solar panels appeared on roofs. Battery systems were installed in a central facility. And for the first time in the village's history, the lights stayed on 24 hours a day. The Technical Training Institute opened, and young people from across the local government area came to learn. Small businesses flourished with reliable power. Farmers could store their produce in cold rooms. Children could study at night. The entire rhythm of village life changed. Folake underwent treatment in Ibadan, paid for by her daughters, but organized by their assistants. She lived in the village guest house, attended by a nurse, but kept a respectful distance from the family. Sometimes, she would watch from afar as Adebayo laughed with his daughters, as they presented him with gifts, as they called him our hero. She saw what she had missed, what she had thrown away, and the knowledge was more painful than the cancer. One evening, 6 months after her return, Folake was sitting on the guest house veranda when Taiwo appeared. The doctors say your treatment is working. Taiwo said, without preamble, you'll likely make a full recovery. Thanks to you and your sister. Yes. They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. I want you to know, Folake said quietly, that I don't expect anything from you. I know I can never be your mother the way I should have been. But I want you to know that watching you both these past months, seeing what you've accomplished, seeing the kind of women you become despite me, not because of me, it's the proudest and most ashamed I've ever felt in my life. Taiwo's expression didn't change. Good. You should feel both those things. I know you did this to be better than me, to prove you're not like me. No, Taiwo corrected. We did this to be like Baba, To honor the man who chose love over bitterness, who chose sacrifice over selfishness, who chose us over everything else. Everything good in us came from him. I know, but Taiwo continued, and her voice softened slightly. Maybe something good can come from you too. Not love. Not yet, maybe not ever. But maybe a lesson. You're a walking example of what not to do, of what not to be. Every young mother in this village knows your story. They know what happens when you choose money over family, when you choose pride over love. You're a cautionary tale, Mama. Maybe that's your purpose now. Folake nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I can live with that. If my mistakes can teach others, then maybe I can make something good from all this bad. A year later, the village celebrated the official completion of the electrification project. The entire local government area now had reliable power. Hundreds of young people had been trained in renewable energy technology, and the region had become a model for rural development across West Africa. The celebration was massive. Government officials came from Ibadan and even Lagos. International development organizations sent representatives. Media crews documented everything. But for Adebayo, the most meaningful moment came when his daughter stood on the platform and called him up to join them. This man, Kahin told the crowd, her hand on her father's shoulder, worked 3 jobs to put us through school. He chose us when the whole world told him to give up. He showed us that wealth isn't measured in money, but in character. Every generator we design, Taiwo added, every community we electrify, every life we improve, we do it because our father taught us that service is the highest calling, that lifting others up is the truest form of success. They presented him with the keys to a brand new fully equipped mechanic workshop, 10 times the size of his old one. So you can finally retire from fixing generators in the dark, Kahin said, laughing through her tears. As the celebration continued into the evening, with music and dancing and food, Folake watched from the edges of the crowd. She was healthy now, cancer-free, working as a teacher's aide at the new technical institute. It was humble work, poorly paid, but it was honest. She would never be part of the family. Not really, but she could see them, could watch her daughter succeed, could witness the love between father and children that she had once destroyed. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly, but it was something, a chance to witness goodness, even if she couldn't fully participate in it. As the sun set over the village, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and reds, the lights came on throughout the community. Not the flickering, uncertain lights of generators, but steady, reliable electricity. Light where there had been darkness. Hope where there had been despair. And in that light, Adebayo danced with his daughters. The village celebrated around them, and a broken family found not reconciliation, but something perhaps more important. Closure, mercy, and the understanding that love given freely is more powerful than love demanded. The moral was clear to everyone who witnessed it. True wealth is not measured in money or status, but in character and integrity. The love we give unconditionally is returned multiplied, while the love we demand often leaves us empty. Abandoning those who depend on us may seem like freedom, but it is truly the worst kind of prison. And mercy, given when undeserved, is the highest form of strength. We cannot change the past, but we can choose what we become because of it. The choice between bitterness and grace, between revenge and mercy, between holding grudges and moving forward, defines not just our success, but our very souls.